This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
Welcome along to Free Practice 2 ahead of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix this weekend. Another hour and we are about to see what is going to unfold. Free Practice 1 happened a couple of hours ago. If you were with us, welcome back. If you weren't, you missed Sergio Perez going quickest at 1 minute 45.476, a tenth quicker than Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. 3/10 quicker than his teammate Max Verstappen. Verstappen actually did 4 more laps than Perez and Leclerc. Sainz was 4th quickest for Ferrari, and Fernando Alonso, with the last lap of the session, nipped in to be 5th quickest ahead of Hamilton, Tsunoda and George Russell. Alongside me here, we have the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson and the former McLaren mechanic Mark Priestley. And were there many surprises for you in that first practice session, Mark?
Not so much. I don't think so. I think we probably looked at this circuit before coming here and thought, well, it's probably going to favour Red Bull. I think the big question was perhaps how close would it be? And the answers that we got, at least in the first stages of this weekend, were that it was reasonably close. Leclerc just over a tenth away from the lead Red Bull car, but they deliver their lap times in very different ways, and that's probably the story of this Grand Prix weekend, isn't it? It's a circuit that's unique in so many different ways, has so many different characteristics. Some elements of the lap really suit the Ferrari, others suit the Red Bull, but the key one is that really long straight and the top speed advantage that Red Bull has, and that for me is going to come into play even more as the weekend goes on towards the race.
The 3 softest tyre compounds this weekend, the C3s, C4s and C5s, for what it's worth, on the mediums, the hards and the softs respectively. No, sorry, the hards, mediums and softs respectively. And as Mark was alluding to there, Andrew, Leclerc was on pole position last year, but everybody just drove by him on the straight like he wasn't there. So is that just going to be the same scenario?
Well, I don't know how he did that last year. How on earth did he do that in that Ferrari last year? That must have been one of the laps of the season. But look, he's got 5 poles in 7 races this year. So although Sergio Perez, looking impressive again, by the way, was the quickest in the first practice session.
So Verstappen's only got 1 pole this year?
Yeah, I would still put Leclerc as my favourite for pole tomorrow. But I've thought, as I said on the preview show actually yesterday, that I thought for a while that this was a Red Bull circuit for the reasons Mark said, and not seen any. It's only Friday. It was only Friday first practice that we've seen so far. We'll get the race simulations later, obviously, but so far I've not seen anything to dissuade me from that opinion. But I think what is interesting.
Are you often dissuaded?
Yes, I'm a completely open-minded person. I'm interested to see the Perez-Verstappen dynamic this weekend. I think that could be interesting. Perez is on a bit of a roll, and as much as Red Bull might want to favour Verstappen, and we're obviously aware that that's what they'll keep doing, Perez is looking like he's going to make that a bit uncomfortable for them at the moment.
I don't know what that alarm is, everybody. Very sorry. That was somewhere down in the pit lane in front of the Red Bull garage. Well, I sort of suggested this to Mark at the start of the session. Does Verstappen have, and I couldn't think of a way to phrase it, but sort of something to prove or some reason to bounce back after Monaco? And obviously the answer is no. He doesn't have anything to prove. But actually then when he was 3/10 slower than Perez in free practice 1 again, it's a little surprising.
Yeah, I mean, it's only free practice.
But that's what we said in Monaco. In Monaco, after free practice 1, I said, oh, well,
yeah,
Red Bull are going to win this easy because Perez is only a tenth off Leclerc, so therefore Verstappen will end up 2 tenths ahead of Leclerc.
Yes, and
but it never materialised.
Well, no, and it's beginning,
so dissuade me.
Well, it's beginning to look like we can't make those same assumptions from last year and, transfer them over to this year, because as we were talking about during the commentary for first practice, this Red Bull behaves very differently, and I don't think Max Verstappen has very many limitations as a Formula 1 driver. He's exceptional and has always been, but he doesn't like understeer, and this Red Bull does inherently understeer, and Perez is comfortable with that as a handling characteristic, and as a result the gap between them is smaller this year. Still, Verstappen is quicker, demonstrably, over the season so far, but there could be tracks where it favours Perez as a result, and particularly tracks where you need good rotation on corner entry. Monaco is one of them, and Baku is another. You need the car to you need to get the car to rotate at the pace that at the speed that you want it to for your driving style. And Verstappen struggled with that in Monaco, and he was clearly struggling with that in first practice because he was talking about it on the radio, and that he had that very bizarre spin at turn 15 right at the end of the session, which again he blamed on understeer. Again, that's a reason why it could be a good weekend for Perez.
It was a very strange spin, wasn't it? It was really, I've never seen anyone spin quite like that. Sort of ever. I don't know. It was just like on a sixpence. The car just kind of pivoted.
It did allude to potentially some engine settings, pushing the car on as he lifted off. So when he was off throttle, the engine's still pushing him forward, and that's obviously a dynamic you don't particularly need going into a tight corner like turn 15. So hopefully they've made some tweaks and overcome that, and we won't get a repeat this time out.
Carlos Sainz first out on circuit then in this second practice session. Finished second in Monaco, which was his 10th podium in Formula 1, and we've got 59 minutes and 7, 6, 5, 4 seconds left on the clock. Sainz out, Ocon out, Norris out, Vettel, Ricciardo, Magnussen, Hamilton, Joe, Bottas all making their way out of the pits. We'll wait and see whether Latifi and Schumacher will get much running in this session. A water leak for Mick Schumacher, and Latifi's car just switching off on track. So they are two drivers with a bit of track time to find. George Russell, the tyre blankets are just coming off his Mercedes, and then he's getting lowered down off the jacks, and a new set of medium tyres adorning the Mercedes as he gets ready to pull out onto the circuit. Hard tyres for Norris and Ricciardo in this session, or the first tyres that they're running in this session. So we saw Ferrari use the hard tyres in FP1, and I think they were the only team to do so. McLaren, the only team to start on the hards here, and then we will go on to the soft tyres for some qualifying simulation runs a little bit later, and then we'll get into the long runs. Everybody else heading out on the medium tyre. Lando Norris making his way around the top end of the circuit in the McLaren. Schumacher has left the pits. Latifi has left the pits.
Just talking about tyres there and the different choices people are making. This session, of course, is going to be split between preparing the cars in terms of, from both a driver perspective, but also from a team engineering perspective, and the setup of the car, getting it ready for both the long runs that you're going to need on Sunday in the race, and that all-important ability to not be overtaken down the incredibly long straight here. We talked about the Red Bull having the top speed advantage, the Ferrari perhaps being less advantage in that area, so there'll be tweaks happening to set up and downforce levels to try and overcome that. But also there's a lot of work around tyres, because with the options that we have here, the softest in the Pirelli range, we've got a circuit that's not particularly tough on tyres in terms of there are no really long duration, high energy corners that take a lot out of the tyres. It's more about sort of traction and braking zones through the tight and twisty bit, and then we get that really long straight where everything cools right down again towards the closing part of the lap. So managing tyre temperatures and really having the temperature in them when you need it, and that's the real challenge. Everything drops down along the straight as the air passes over the car and cools it, and then we get straight into sector one where it's lots of slow speed, right angled corners where you really need tyre temperatures. So there's a lot of work going to be happening as Lando Norris goes straight on in that sector one, almost as if he didn't have tyre temperature.
Yeah, he goes straight on at turn 3. Quite unabrasive, the track surface
very
as well.
Smooth, yeah, very smooth, not abrasive at all in any way, and there's not real high energy stuff, not any high energy corners. So yeah, pretty easy one. Should lean towards a one stopper for that reason. You're not going to get high deg around a circuit like this in the most part.
Lando Norris currently Austin Powersing his way out of the runoff area down at turn 3. Forward a bit.
I can see the memes already.
Back a bit, yeah, exactly. And I think he's got enough now to get going again and rejoins the circuit, Lando Norris, after going straight on.
In fact, knowing Lando Norris, it'll be him that leads the meme community on that one.
Absolutely. He got onto the brakes and, no lockups or anything, just turned in and the front end wasn't there. Sainz does a 46.7 to start the proceedings. Esteban Ocon comes through and goes 1.3 seconds slower than Sainz in the Alpine. And next across the line goes Vettel, and he's 1.2 seconds slower than Carlos Sainz. All of those running on the medium tyre. Now, quite a bit of work going on the rear wing of Max Verstappen's car. Is that a bit of super glue in that little pot?
It did look like that, yeah. Do you know, it's Loctite, actually, for sort of securing in the fixings, the bolts.
Other
brands.
Threadlock. There you go, Threadlock. I was just going to say, actually, over the break between free practice 1 and free practice 2, as well as all the normal stuff, the debriefs on how the car's handling and making some setup tweaks and adjustments to go into free practice 2, there will also be, inevitably, a number of conversations going on up and down the pit lane about the bouncing effect. We talked about it a lot in the early part of the season. It's sort of died down a little bit as teams have gradually got to grips with it. Mercedes, we know, have been a real big team suffering in the most with this, perhaps, of most people. And it's really come back at this circuit in a large way because of the very, very long straight and high speeds that everybody's suffering with. So bouncing could be a real talking point over the course of today, potentially over the weekend. And I wonder if anyone's had to compromise their setup in the break just to alleviate the bouncing that the drivers are suffering.
54 minutes and 5 seconds to go. Alonso a 1 minute 46.6. Hamilton is half a second up on that in the first sector. And Gasly now coming through the final corner at turn 16. Tsunoda goes quickest at 1 minute 46.351. And Gasly at the moment is not going quicker than Tsunoda. He's coming to the line, and I think he'll slot into somewhere behind Yuki. As the timing theme emerges, and he goes fourth quickest as Pierre Gasly, 6/10 away from Yuki Tsunoda. Hamilton going quicker though through the middle sector. Leclerc is out on medium tyres in sector 1. Sound you can hear is Hamilton down into turn 16. A little bit of a correction, but nothing too dramatic for the British driver. He's going to get a nice little tow here from a car in front, which I think is not quite sure. I think it's the Red Bull. Yeah, it's Perez in the Red Bull. Yeah. This is going to be a big old tow for Hamilton. I'm not sure if Perez is going to keep pushing here, but and start his flying lap. I think he is, because he's on an out lap. So Hamilton goes to the top. A 1 minute 46.295. Only 500s quicker than Tsunoda, but that was a huge tow that he got from Perez.
Perfect tow scenario, that, wasn't it? A faster car in front of you, kind of coming to the crescendo exactly at the right moment where you needed to, crossing the finish line. So that would have helped Hamilton in that particular lap, but have they got the inherent pace? I don't think they have at this stage of the weekend.
Leclerc through sector 1, and he is 6/10 quicker than his teammate Carlos Sainz through the first sector. So Leclerc much quicker in that scenario. George Russell's coming up to the line in the other Mercedes, having come through turn 16. Verstappen still the only driver in the pits at the moment, and Russell goes 5th quickest, 4/10 slower than Hamilton. Leclerc, meanwhile, is through the middle sector, does a 54.9. So Leclerc's backed off. Sainz has not, as he comes down the hill. And how's he doing in the middle sector compared to Hamilton? He's up by a second here.
Really pushing, came very, very close to a couple of the walls, which is, of course, where you need to be to get the lap time. He's now coming through the very fast final sector. Last couple of corners, not really even corners. They are flat out all the way onto the very, very long start-finish straight. And we'll get a lap time as he comes up, DRS flap open to cross the line.
The quickest lap time we saw earlier on from Perez was a 45.476.
There you go.
And that is a 45.118 for Carlos Sainz. So very swiftly, quicker than the free practice times earlier on. So that is the fastest time we've had of the weekend so far. 51 minutes and 18 seconds on the clock. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull comes through now, and he comes across the line. Where's this going to put him? Second quickest, 2/10 slower than Carlos Sainz, but Leclerc is going quickly. A very good first sector from Leclerc. It's not quite as good as what he managed previously.
Especially that was brake temp related.
So Vettel went straight on at the first corner because he didn't have his brakes up to temperature. But yeah, Leclerc's a couple of tenths away from his personal best in sector 1, but he is continuing to push in the middle sector, whereas he bailed out of the middle sector last time around. Flovis on the back of the rear wing for the Ferrari, comes down the hill, and compared to Carlos Sainz, he's 8 tenths up here, Leclerc, flying. Joe's gone third quickest, by the way. quicker than Hamilton and Tsunoda and Alonso and Russell.
Yeah, looks like the circuit's really ramping up. Of course, it's a street circuit this, so just got general road traffic on it most of the time. So as the rubber goes down from all of these Formula One cars, it gets quicker and quicker and quicker. The grip levels increase. Charles Leclerc now coming towards the line and will get his lap time. Here we go, top of the timesheet, 1.3 seconds faster than his own teammate Carlos Sainz. There's a marker for you.
Well, then suddenly Alonso goes second quickest, 1.1 seconds slower than Leclerc. So these lap times are all a little bit all over the place at the moment. Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, Perez, Zhou, the top 5. And all of those drivers have basically just set their lap times. And Tsunoda improves to go up into 5th place ahead of Zhou, but 0.2 slower than Sergio Perez. Bottas is coming through the left-hander of 15 now and dropping down the hill. His first sector is about 0.7 off Leclerc. His middle sector is a second off Leclerc, so this might pop him up into maybe 5th or 6th with the AlphaTauris. Gasly has just gone ahead of Yuki Tsunoda, but only by 0.08 of a second. Where is Bottas going to slot in? His teammate Zhou currently 7th. Magnussen goes up to 10th, gets ahead of Esteban Ocon. Bottas now across the line, and he goes 7th, ahead of his teammate Zhou by 0.2 of a second. So 49 minutes exactly left on the clock. Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, Perez, the top 4. Then it's Gasly, Tsunoda, Bottas, Zhou, Hamilton and Vettel, the top 10. Verstappen still in the pit lane.
Yeah, and that's everybody apart from the two McLarens on the medium tyre at this stage. So they're all trying to work out at this point what's the best race strategy. If we think it's going to be a one-stop, which is probably what it's going to most likely be, bar any weird scenarios with red flags and safety cars, you don't have the same rule that we had last time around last year, where you have to start the race on the tyre you qualified if you're in the top 10. That's gone now, so you get a free choice for the start of the race, which of course opens up your strategic options to any of the 3 tyres available to you. So this work that's going on now is trying to understand how long can you push for on this medium tyre, how much life is it going to have, offset with the performance advantage that it might give you over and above the harder tyre, which will run for longer but perhaps not be quite so grippy. So the data here is really valuable and important to all the teams.
Sainz's radio.
I got a plastic bag stuck in my front suspension.
He did indeed. And Esteban Ocon.
I hit a plastic bag into turn 15. Let me know if it's still on the car.
Copy that, we'll have a look.
Everybody hitting the plastic bags.
It might sound like an inconsequential thing, a little plastic bag. It's not going to damage a Formula One car, but of course if it does get stuck in the wrong places, it can block things like brake ducts, and it doesn't take very long without the same airflow passing through your brake ducts for the brakes to overheat very quickly. Same with radiator ducts on the car. If it blocks those, the engine can very quickly overheat, so it can be far more serious than it first appears, a tiny little plastic bag.
47 minutes and 11 seconds to go. Ferrari first and third quickest at the moment. Perez is improving.
So currently P9 is 2.3 to Leclerc P1.
2.3,
It's a long way. 2.3 seconds to that Ferrari.
We're getting those comments from Hamilton a lot this year, aren't we? 1.2, what? 2.3, what?
It does sound like a surprise, doesn't it? But it's a big gap, isn't it? I mean, 2.3 by anybody's book in Formula One terms is enormous. Especially given that that's not, far down the grid. That's halfway down the grid, 2.3 seconds. I'm not talking about front to back here. It's a big gap that the Mercedes have got to find.
There's a song and I can't quite think of it that's like what, which I feel like we should have a Benson remix of. And I can't quite hashtag BBC F1 help me know the song I'm thinking of. It's like
I know what you're
what I
about.
mean.
Yeah, unbelievably from that little rendition.
What?
I know what you're talking about.
What? Anyway, Ferrari have also announced earlier on they're going back to Le Mans in the prototype class.
That's exciting.
Which is very cool. 50 years after their last entry as in the prototype class at Le Mans, so that's quite cool. And kind of goes hand in hand with what we were talking about Mick Schumacher earlier on. Maybe a seat there. Who knows? 45 minutes and 35 seconds on the clock. Leclerc quickest, Perez second, Alonso third, and back in the pits. Verstappen is out on track then. He's come through the first sector and he's 7 tenths away from Leclerc. Leclerc has done 6 laps. Was his quickest lap on the second run? I don't think it was it? No, I think it was just his first run for Leclerc.
Yeah, it was.
We'll see what Verstappen's got after the middle sector now. Coming into turn 15, where he had his spin earlier on. No such troubles this time around. Vettel goes up into 8th place, so he's continuing to find time in the Aston Martin. And he's a second away here, Verstappen. Big slide on the exit of turn 16. And now driving towards the line. But that'll have cost him some time all the way down, really, this straight.
I mean, interesting that we're talking about him and his oversteery/understeery car, an inherently understeery car, but we've seen a couple of moments on this lap where this car has definitely got a bit of oversteer dialed into it at the moment.
Leclerc does the fastest first sector of anyone, a 36.2. Verstappen across the line, and he's 1.5 seconds back from the Ferraris. But Leclerc is coming through the middle sector now, heading towards the castle section, up through the tight left-hander. Oh, it's real Slim Shady, we think it is. Oh, it's a mixture of real Slim Shady or... No, that's the one I'm thinking of, actually. Thank you to Marshall and Cora. It's Friday, then it's Saturday, Sunday, what? Which, within the one that Norris sang. So,
yeah, that's it. Well done.
There we go.
Well done. Leclerc on an absolute flyer here. Verstappen really struggled on that lap and only managed as good as 6th position. Perez currently 3rd, and as it stands, Leclerc 1st, Sainz 2nds, with Leclerc going even quicker on this particular lap.
Yeah, another couple of tenths up after the middle sector. We'll keep an eye on Perez's time, as you say. He's just coming through or down the sequence of corners around 4 and 5 and 6. Leclerc is coming out towards the line. And it's not an improvement in the end, a 44.0.
Well, very, very clear indication that of where their strength is. It's right in the early part of the lap, and they lose out dramatically towards the end of the lap when it's all about the high speed. So can Red Bull take advantage of that? It's a big question, I guess.
Really bad bouncing on the straight. Leclerc was suffering there as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, it's really exacerbated that problem for a lot of the teams by the look of it. The bouncing becoming much more serious because of the high speeds they're reaching, and for the long duration that they're reaching those high speeds. Something they're all suffering with.
Okay, so it's definitely My Name Is by Eminem. It's definitely that. My name is my name is. There we go. We got there in the end. Thank you, everybody. George Blake says, "Is it that Shaves Long song by Wet Leg?" And it isn't. But I'm a big fan of that song, and I think Andrew Benson is too. Yeah.
Have you got the album yet, Jack?
I haven't got the album yet.
The album's good, actually.
Really?
It's not the same, but it's good.
I only know that one song. If anyone wants a song recommendation, Shays Long by Wet Leg. 42 minutes and 18 seconds on the clock, and it's a genuine song, and it's genuinely good. Maybe parental advisory now I think about it. Here comes Schumacher towards the line, and he is currently 20th quickest, 4.3 seconds off the pace, but didn't get any running in earlier on. Leclerc fastest on a 43.8, Sainz second on a 42.4, Perez third on a 44.5, Alonso fourth on a 44.9.
It's actually not parental advisory. It's massively double entendre.
Yeah,
but it's not actually sweary. There are sweary bits on the album. But one song.
I just thought I would give people a heads up.
It's quite rude.
It's a bit rude.
Yeah.
Very blue. It's very blue. Schumacher left through turn 3. Now up towards the right-hander of turn 4.
While this is happening, Perez is giving his response to that blistering lap from Leclerc. Let's see what he can do as he starts his lap.
Yeah, because he started a quick one last time and then I think might have bailed out of it. But this first sector is looking good for Perez. Here he comes through the first split. He's 2 tenths down on Leclerc, but that's not too bad considering that has been Ferrari's strength, that first sector, so far in this today.
Yeah, and if you're interesting looking at Verstappen, who's also on a lap, not been able to really match the likes of Perez or the Ferraris in that first sector. Of course, we know the Red Bull has its strength towards the end of the lap, but Perez seemingly managing to get a bit more performance out of it all the way through. First and middle sectors looking reasonably good for Perez.
40 minutes and 47 seconds to go. Schumacher is the sound you can hear coming into turn 16. He's 3.2 seconds down, and he's got bucket loads of understeer coming into the left-hander. nowhere near the apex there for Schumacher. And Perez is a quarter of a second up on Leclerc.
Verstappen only able to go third quickest, 6/10 off the lead Ferrari of Charles Leclerc.
Perez now driving towards the line. Schumacher is going to cross the line first of all. 20th currently, remains 20th, Schumacher. Quite a long way off his teammate Kevin Magnussen, a second and a half. Whereas here comes Perez, and I think it's quite going to beat Leclerc. It doesn't, but he's only a tenth away. And didn't improve in the final sector.
No, so interestingly, have we seen a little switch over the break? Have we seen Ferrari make some adjustments that just might have brought their car more into line with this particular circuit? Or have we seen Red Bull make some tweaks that perhaps have gone the other way? Interesting, but early signs that the performance seems a bit closer than it did this morning.
So Sainz is wheeled back into the garage. And interesting that Verstappen's not quite there.
No, he struggled again on that lap. He just could not get the best out of it all the way through. Right from the beginning of the lap, he seemed to struggle in comparison to his teammate and certainly in comparison to Leclerc. And what he could pull out in the final sector just wasn't enough to overcome what he lost in the early part of the lap.
So the order is Leclerc, Perez, Sainz, Verstappen, Alonso there in 5th again. Tsunoda got back ahead of Gasly. Bottas is 8th, Vettel is 9th, Russell is 10th. Ocon, Joe, Hamilton, Stroll and Magnussen the top 15. Norris and Ricciardo on the hard tyres in 16th and 17th. And then Albon and Latifi 18th and 19th. They've just gone out. They're the first drivers out on the soft compound of tyre. And then Schumacher in 20th place. So after we were talking about Chaise Long by Wet Leg, Ian's tweeted in, are other songs available? And of course, yes, other songs are available. 38 minutes and 37 seconds on the clock. Here comes Latifi then. Through the right-hander of turn 5, and as I say, the Williams, the first team to go out on a new set of soft tyres and get their qualifying simulation runs in. Latifi 1.2 seconds down on Leclerc in the first sector. He's currently 4/10ths down on Alex Albon after their first run.
He needs a good weekend, Latifi, doesn't he? He's had a real tough start to the season, and even rumours beginning to circulate about his future at the team. He's had a number of crashes, a number of driver errors, a number of problems. Some perhaps his own doing, others perhaps not. But we saw Mercedes put their own reserve driver into that Williams in the form of Nick De Vries a couple of races ago, and some speculation as to whether that could be a sign of a future driver pairing at Williams, Albon and De Vries.
Potentially. 37 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock. Now, Verstappen through sector 1, and that's better. He's only a 10th away from Charles Leclerc in the first sector. Latifi coming up towards the line now in the Williams. What's his lap time going to be? It is a 1 minute 47.4. So he matches Albon's time, but Albon's time was set on the medium tyre, and Albon is on a lap now. Verstappen's finding time in the middle sector. Here he comes then, the Red Bull driver. Up through the castle section and then down towards the left-hander of turn 15. Swings it into that left now. Nice and close to the wall on the exit. Middle sector split. He's up by 3/10ths on Leclerc. So this is a bit more like it. And this is where the Red Bull's going to be strong.
Looked like they've dialed out a bit of that oversteer that we saw the last couple of runs. There was definite signs of oversteer reaction in that Red Bull. That didn't seem to be the case this time. So he's got it hooked up. And this is the area of the racetrack, the last sector, the long straight that really does suit Max Verstappen's Red Bull car. DRS flap open, skimming its way along the ground, and he goes second fastest, but not a lot in it. Very, very close. 3/100ths of a second behind Charles Leclerc.
So why are Red Bull not going quickly through the final sector?
Well, they are going quickly through the final sector, but I mean that's where I think they're making their time up. But Ferrari are scoring their points, they're scoring their time in the first sector. Red Bull are kind of losing out, but minimising that loss, but they're not making up enough in the final sector. So I don't know whether it's a Ferrari step forward or a Red Bull going slightly wayward with their setup, but things have definitely pivoted slightly in this second session so far.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those split times, Verstappen's quicker in sector 1 and 2. It looks like they've added a bit of downforce to that car, doesn't it?
Could be.
Yeah, that could, because at the moment it's 3/10ths quicker for the Ferraris in the final sector. Stu G saying that Grand Prix by Teenage Fan Club must get a mention if we're doing BBC crossover 6 music vibes. So yes, good album. Teenage Fan Club fan, Andrew Benson? Not so much? Okay.
That was a shake of the head from Anson Andrew Benson there.
Start Again, I think, is one of the songs on that record that I quite like. Sebastian Vettel out on
circuit.
circuit.
Didn't have a Simtech on the cover there?
Yes, exactly. I think it was a Simtech. There you can see it. Showing people things on the radio.
Yeah.
So thank you, Stu G, for that. Cameron says, are you also obligated to say that other commentary is available for these sessions? Yeah, other commentary is available, but at a high price. At a high price.
On so many different levels.
To your sanity. A high price to your sanity. No, we do. We love the gang. We love the gang. Here comes Vettel then around the first couple of corners. And so the order is Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, the top 4. Alonso 5th. Tsunoda, Gasly, Bottas, Vettel, Russell, the top 10. Ocon, Joe, Hamilton, Stroll, Magnussen, the top 15. Albon, in the end, went 8 tenths quicker than Nicholas Latifi managed in the Williams. So Albon is 16th for Williams, Norris is 17th, 18th Ricciardo, 19th Latifi. Vettel is 4 tenths down in the first sector. And he is on a new set of tyres. And now swings his way up the hill through the castle section. Vettel, who didn't win a race in Baku, did he? He was leading, and then he had the whole sort of bumping behind the safety car situation in 2017 with, Hamilton! He locked up his left front going into 15 there. He still managed to get it stopped and turned through, but that would have cost him a bit of time and nearly cost him a bit of carbon fibre. 7 tenths down on Leclerc after the middle sector. Did Vettel actually come through and win that in the end because Hamilton had his headrest thing? I can't quite remember what happened in 2017.
He didn't win it, but he did finish ahead of Hamilton because of the headrest thing,
Yeah. And was that Bottas won it?
Was it Ricciardo?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I didn't cover that race, so I can't remember. I was at Glastonbury, so I didn't cover it. Tom Clarkson did the commentary. 33 minutes to go, and Vettel goes 6th fastest, 1.1 seconds slower than Charles Leclerc. Bad WWE stat says, are Baku and Montjuic the only F1 tracks with their own castle? I think Nürburgring has a castle.
Got a castle, yeah.
So any other racetracks with castles, let us know. Hashtag BBC F1.
Donington.
Or F1 at bbc.co.uk.
There's a castle at Monaco, or it's a palace, but...
Yeah, palace isn't a castle. Castle Coombe, says our producer. Is there a castle? I think there is a castle not at the track, I don't think. Here is Hamilton. Into the castle section now. So much commitment through there. It's always terrifying to watch. You think someone's going to do a Leclerc or a Palmer any second. Hamilton now coming out towards turn 15. His first sector is a 36.8, so he's 6 tenths down in sector 1 compared to Leclerc. He's now through the left-hander of 15, dropping down the hill, 6 tenths down after sector 1. Only 3 tenths down after sector 2, so that's a good middle sector from Hamilton. A 41.8 is only a tenth or so slower than Sergio Perez, so there's definitely pace there for Mercedes, albeit these are the soft tyres now for Hamilton. Only Verstappen and Perez are in the pits. Everybody else is out on the softs, about to put some qualifying sim laps in. Ocon goes up to 9th quickest. Here comes Hamilton, bouncing his way over the line, and he goes 6th. Slower than his teammate George Russell, though, by 3 tenths of a second. A 44.5 for Russell, a 44.8 for Hamilton.
Yeah, interesting. Now we're moving into the softs. We've got Charles Leclerc just making his way around his outlap. It's going to be interesting to see what the big guns can do on that softer tyre, because although qualifying clearly is important, it's always important, I do feel like the race setup is going to be more important on this particular circuit because of the overtaking opportunities along that start-finish straight. So starting the race in first position doesn't give you the same advantage that it would have done perhaps last time out in Monaco.
Darren has texted saying he's on his way to Castle-Combe right now. Apparently there's...
Have a great day, Darren.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he going to check whether there's a castle there?
Yeah, okay. Let me know when you get there, Darren. Message again. Let me know if there is an actual castle. In fact, Ian, I'll ask Ian. You don't know Ian, everybody, but I'll ask Ian now. Across the line, track's just gone green. There was a yellow flag very briefly in the middle sector. Leclerc, Verstappen, Perez, and Sainz are the top 4 currently.
Verstappen and Sainz still in the pits, so the only ones yet to emerge for a proper good qualifying run are the 2 Red Bulls. I imagine they'll be coming out shortly. Let this first flurry go, wait for perhaps a little bit of space on the track. But it's going to be really interesting to see what they can do. I'm really intrigued to see how Ferrari and Red Bull play this when it comes to their qualifying setup. As I said earlier, not quite the same level of importance perhaps on it this week than at some others. So it's all about compromise, as it always is, but how far are you willing to compromise your lap time, your overall lap time, which is the one that sets pole position, for your ability to have a good, strong race car.
Less than half an hour to go now, 29 minutes and 26 seconds. Leclerc is flying through Sector 1. Rob Colley says, isn't Paul Ricard at Le Castellet? Does that count? I don't think so, Rob, but I like your thinking. Gasly coming down the hill into turn 16 through the middle sector split, and he's less than 2 tenths down on Leclerc, but Leclerc is improving as previously advertised. The 36.1 in the first sector. Perez is on an out lap. Verstappen is still in the pits, but remember Verstappen went out later as they were fixing his DRS, so he is a little bit behind in the run plans chronologically. Sainz through sector 1 is about a tenth, just over a tenth slower than his teammate Leclerc. Gasly across the line goes up to 6th fastest, slower than Fernando Alonso, and but ahead of George Russell and his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Leclerc is 8 tenths up on his previous best on these soft tyres.
Full commitment through turn 15. I mean, if he didn't brush the walls, there must have been only millimetres in it. I mean, this is an absolute flyer. Sainz also running well behind him. Really strong middle sector from Carlos Sainz, and the 2 Ferraris have definitely found some pace since FP1. Leclerc's going to be the first man to cross the line. DRS flap opens as he gets towards the start-finish line. There he goes, a 1:43. That's half a second up on his previous best, a 1:43.2. And then his teammate Carlos Sainz, has he backed out? He has backed out.
Yeah, and interestingly, Leclerc wasn't quicker in the final sector on that lap, so maybe he made a mistake out of or through turn 16, or maybe it was what you saw in turn 15.
He must have skimmed the wall, but it looked clean, but you never know.
So there's plenty of time left in that Ferrari.
There is, and Carlos Sainz was on a really, really strong lap, and for some reason that we didn't see, he seems to have backed out of that. But there's performance there for sure, and Red Bull will be looking at that with interest.
Yeah, his middle sector was the quickest of anyone, Carlos Sainz. Ian has got back to me there was once a castle at Castle-Combe, but it was demolished centuries ago. Okay. Centuries ago.
Good info.
So so that doesn't count either in castle-wise.
It's like an episode of Time Team, this, isn't it? We're digging up the history of monuments of the UK. Love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think of a Tony Robinson gag and I couldn't think of one. 26 minutes and 57 seconds to go. Sergio Perez has a cunning plan here, trying to go quicker than Charles Leclerc at the top of the times in free practice 2. And Verstappen is still in the pits. And Charles Leclerc is quickest in the Ferrari, a 1:43.224. Very impressive lap time from him, but the Red Bull of Sergio Perez and the other Red Bull of Max Verstappen are about to take to the track to try and beat that as they practice for qualifying that's coming up tomorrow afternoon. Full commentary on the BBC Sport website. Oh, Perez was close on the exit of 15. Real brush with the barriers. He's 3 tenths down on Leclerc after the middle sector, so this is going to be an improvement for Perez, but I don't think he's going to end this session at the top of the times like he did the first. Through the right-hander and flat out now towards the line. DRS open, and Perez goes second, 2 tenths away from Leclerc, a quarter of a second basically.
Yeah, Ferrari have definitely got genuine pace, haven't they? And actually that advantage that we talked about, the real key advantage in that final sector, not quite what it was this morning.
No, absolutely not. Verstappen's still in the pits, so Leclerc quickest, 2 tenths ahead of Perez. Verstappen 6 tenths back, but has only done his run on the medium tyres. Alonso is 4th, Sainz is 5th, and I think on a cool down, maybe on another cool down, Albon has certainly hit the wall somewhere, I think, with his front right, and I think we're about to find out where. Oh, goodness me! So he's out of turn 16, the flat-out right-hander of 17, and Albon has just turned in too soon and thwacked the wall on the inside. Very lucky to kind of get away with that, really.
Yeah, that's, I mean, it's a high-speed moment, that is, and that was just literally a misjudgment from Alex Albon there. He just ran it too close. Of course, the lap time comes from running very close to the walls, and kissing the barriers is not often unusual, particularly on a street circuit. I mean, as a former mechanic, I can tell you I've taken lots of wheels off cars that have got tyre marks on them from having made contact, but that was a heavy one from Albon, and the Alpine of Esteban Ocon also clipping the left rear as he makes his way through the streets of Azerbaijan, Baku.
Yeah, that was on the exit of turn 4, and Schumacher has just gone straight on at turn 4 and now carried on his way also. Verstappen's still in the pit lane, 24 minutes and 17 seconds on the clock. So aside from Verstappen and Sainz, everybody's done a lap on the soft tyres, and Bottas, and the order is Leclerc, Perez, Verstappen, Alonso, Sainz, Gasly, Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon, Norris, the top 10, Vettel, Hamilton, Stroll, Ricciardo, Zhou, the top 15, Magnussen, Bottas, Albon, Latifi and Schumacher, the 20 drivers. Owen asked earlier on, does Nick de Vries and Stoffel Van Dorn become McLaren drivers if they stay where they are in Mercedes EQ? No is basically the answer there, and we're anticipating both of them to leave the team in Formula E and go somewhere else. Hence the sort of rumours about potentially De Vries going to Williams. And that was such a really strange one from Albon, because he sort of turned in and then kind of realised he'd turned in too soon, so turned out, but then still turned in again. It was a really odd one.
Yeah, cut it way too fine. I mean, that's what they're trying to do here. They're trying to maximise everything, look for any tiny 1,000th of a second they can gain by running close to walls, but he just got that wrong. I guess that's what practice sessions are all about to some extent.
Chris says, on the subject of alternative commentary, you never did tell us why Mark Webber was undoing his trousers during the Monaco red flag. The answer is, Chris, I never found out. Oh, did he tell why? Oh yeah, actually, I did ask Alex Jakes, and his reply was, "That's how we roll in Channel 4." So I don't know what that means, but I didn't ask Webber exactly why that was happening.
Perez had a little bit of a moment here, and we're about to see a replay of it, so we'll talk you through it. But it's into turn 1. Yeah, just turned in, and there was nothing there for him in terms of grip. Either couldn't get the car slowed down enough with those cooler brakes at the end of that long straight, or there wasn't enough tyre temperature at the same point.
I'm not quite sure what it is, but there's something flopping around on my right-hand side on the side front.
Okay.
But it's not. It doesn't look like it's bodywork. It looks like maybe
it's the thing we taped on. So I think we should box and then we'll tape it again and then go again.
So the thing they taped on is coming off.
Bit of a retape required. It looks like a bit of blanking over a vent or something, like over a cooling duct or something like that. I mean, it actually looks like a piece of paper flapping around on the back of the car, but it won't be. It'll just be a bit of blanking over one of the cooling exits, and that's just come unstuck. So a little bit of a quick fix and some retape.
Leclerc has gone straight on at turn 7, and he's been there for a while, and he's just managed to get going again, has reversed back onto the track. Yellow flags are out, and Leclerc gets going. No damage to the car as he resumes on his way. Verstappen is on an outlap now. Gasly, I think, also went straight on at the first corner. Just getting a replay of what happened to Leclerc. Coming through 5 and 6, down towards turn 7. Gets onto the brakes and locks up both front tyres, actually. So that'll be, well, we'll see. Not great for those tyres, basically, if he's going to be trying to do a long run on those in a bit.
Yeah,
I don't think he will be.
No, that's definitely not ideal. Interestingly, because he's now presumably either on an outlap or he will return to the pits, but he has put himself right behind Verstappen, I think, on the racetrack. So if there's a tow to be had at some point, it could be a Red Bull towing a Ferrari round.
Cactus Jack said, I'm sure Albon is now adding "don't cut" to his notes for turn 15. Yeah, very true. Right, here comes Verstappen on his outlap, down towards the first corner, and starts by turning into the left-hander. And we will see what Verstappen can do. Sergio Perez is just ahead of him on the road in the other Red Bull, going for another lap on the soft tyres. But he is already, as we know, 2/10 down on Leclerc's time. Verstappen is improving through the first sector, as you would anticipate, because this is his run on the soft tyre as opposed to the medium tyre he set his lap time on previously. Sainz is going quickly through the first couple of corners as well.
He is. We're going to get lap times from Sergio Perez, and then very quickly after that, Carlos Sainz, and they're going to be two really interesting ones, aren't they? Carlos Sainz, looking very strong through that first sector, but Sergio Perez also looking to sort of match him, not far off.
Yeah, Verstappen's not far off either through sector 1, and this is his first lap on these soft tyres, so in theory a bit more grip on them. Throws it through the castle, up to the top of the hill, now through the left, the back end really dancing out as he swings it around, and then heading down towards turn 15. The sound you can hear is, but he's got a yellow flag. Yellow flag because someone has gone straight on, and it's his teammate Perez.
Yeah.
So Monaco flashbacks.
Yeah, what a shame. It's a shame really, because we're not going to get that vital piece of information that we want to see. Just how quick are they on that soft tyre run? It's also hampered the lap of Carlos Sainz, I think, as well, of course, in the same way.
Yeah, Monaco flashbacks mean when Perez crashed at Portier and meant that Verstappen couldn't improve on his run, and Perez simply he knew quite early on he'd gone in too hot there. Sergio Perez did a little U-E in the runoff area, waited for Verstappen to come past, and then carried on his way. So Leclerc still quickest. We'll see. Verstappen might have to do a cool down now. Well, he will have to. Sainz also got caught out by that yellow flag too. Ooh, slide from Bottas coming through turn 16 at the bottom of the hill. Back end was heading out there in the Alfa Romeo, gathered it all up. He'd done a personal best in the first sector, Bottas. Not a great middle sector, so I don't think he's going to improve on this lap. But we're still waiting for Verstappen to see what he can do. As I say, he'll do another cool-down lap now, which will take about 2.5 minutes or so, and then we'll see him go again.
Yeah, so still to find that vital bit of information, really. Just where does it all sit at the top of the table? It's so close, very difficult to call. And I think we'd have said that after the first free practice session, where early on Red Bull looked to have a clear and distinct advantage. Tweaks and setup changes perhaps over the break seems to have either pegged Red Bull back a little bit in the direction they've gone, or brought Ferrari closer to the front.
Good shout from Phil here. At Magny-Cours, there's Chateau d'Eau. But is that just a castle for water? I don't know. But there is a corner called Chateau d'Eau. I like that, Phil. I will maybe do some research.
I can assure you there's not an actual castle.
There's no castle at Magny-Cours. Okay. Is there water?
Somewhere. You can get water at Magny-Cours, yes. There certainly isn't one at that corner, though.
There was a lot of water in qualifying for the 1999 French Grand Prix.
In the race.
Was it the race?
That's the one where Frentzen and Jordan won by going non-stop, basically. Not quite non-stop, did an early pit stop and then just kept going.
Yeah. Schumacher through the first sector, 37.6, so he's 1.5 seconds down on Leclerc after sector 1 here, Mick Schumacher, but he is improving on his personal best time, the mediums. And you have to say, on a weekend where your team boss says you can't crash anymore, Baku's kind of the last track you want to be going to, I think.
It's true, yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, it's the lap time, as much as anything you can do with a car, comes from building the driver's confidence at a circuit like this. Gradually building yourself up to get closer and closer to those walls where the ultimate lap time exists. And yeah, to have that sort of pressure hanging over you from comments from your boss is the last thing you need. But so far, so good. After an early technical failure, which put him out of FP1 with a water leak on his car, he's now up to full speed during this second practice session.
He's getting a tow here as well from Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. Sparks kicking up into the air after that.
He was the wrong side. He did exactly what Hamilton did.
But he did. But I think he's okay because he did the dotted line. I think he cut across the dotted line back before it became solid.
Yeah.
But he goes 19th quickest nevertheless, 1.2 seconds slower than Kevin Magnussen. And that, well, it doesn't quite complete all of our soft runs. Haven't seen a lap yet from Verstappen. Here he comes through the first sector, and it's a 36.4, so it's all right in sector 1, but not particularly exciting, and he's not improving currently either. The sound you can hear is Lewis Hamilton. He's out on the mediums now, so he's starting his long run with 15 minutes and 12 seconds on the clock.
The signs are a little bit similar to last time out with Verstappen, and I appreciate there's a long way to go in this weekend yet, but doesn't seem as comfortable yet around this particular circuit in that car as his teammate Perez does. I mean, there's 4 tenths between them in terms of the lap times. I don't think that's a fair picture because we haven't seen a clear lap from Verstappen, but he seems to be having to hustle his car around a lot more than Sergio Perez seems able to do, and certainly a lot more than the two Ferraris seem capable of. A lot more under control when delivering that Ferrari lap time than the Red Bulls seem in their current configuration. So Hamilton then.
Verstappen is improving.
Yeah, he is.
As he comes out towards the line now, so he's finally getting a lap in on the soft tyres, and he, I think, will remain third quickest on a 1 minute 43.580, so a tenth slower than Leclerc, a tenth slower than Perez, 3 tenths slower than Leclerc. So half a tenth off on his second run on those tyres, or the second lap on those tyres, when he's taken the best out of them. Is not too bad from Verstappen, but they're certainly in the mix.
Well, they're in the mix, but the advantage they had early on and the advantage we expected them to have has all but disappeared. I mean, he is quicker in that final sector, but not by anywhere near enough to make up the deficit that they're suffering in the first couple of sectors. So yes, there's not a lot in it. I'm sure it could still literally go in any direction from this point, but there seemed to be a giant cavernous advantage between the two early on, which has been eradicated at some point.
Hamilton over the line again on his long run, 7 seconds off the pace of Leclerc. So the order will end: Leclerc, Perez, Verstappen, Alonso, Sainz. Sainz didn't get his lap in, so in theory he's sort of fourth quickest, or certainly in that top 4. Then Gasly 6th, Russell 7th, Tsunoda 8th, 9th for Ocon, 10th for Norris, Vettel, Hamilton, Stroll, Ricciardo 3 tenths away from Norris, Bottas 15th, Joe 16th, Magnussen 17th, Albon, Schumacher and Latifi, the 20 drivers. Daniel says Castle Hill Climb in Cornwall is on the Restormal Castle, I don't know how to pronounce that, which is a proper 13th century castle estate. Does that count? For me, hill climbs aren't race tracks, so
no.
So I think no.
Yeah.
I think no.
Harsh but fair.
It's a sport. It's a motorsport. It's a motorsport venue with a castle, but I don't think it's a racetrack with a castle. But thank you, Daniel. It sounds interesting. Apart from Goodwood, I've never been to a hill climb. I need to get to Shelsley Walsh.
Yeah. I'm actually going soon. Can't wait. It's my first time.
Oh, really?
As well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, tremendous. Have you ever been to Shelsley Walsh, Andrew? No, he's shaking his head. He still hasn't worked out how radio works. 12 minutes on the clock. Leclerc quickest on a 1 minute 43.2.
I just didn't want to get into hill climbing. It's not my thing at all.
Philosophically, you didn't want to get into a hill climbing conversation.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought a quick shake of the head would fend you off, but it didn't work, did it?
What don't you like about hill climbing?
Remember I said I didn't want to get into hill climbing?
I think we need the BBC to commission a special report on the history of on the One Show. Andrew Benson on the One Show doing a report on Shelsley Walsh. Him and Giles Brandreth go to Shelsley Walsh and do a piece on the start of Murray Walker's career.
I can do better than that.
Yeah?
A long time ago, I went to report on a trials event.
Really?
Yeah. Do you even know what that is?
Isn't that where you have to, like, you have to do stages in, like, a certain time?
No.
No,
it's like... Anyway, we've got long runs. I'll talk to you about
haven't got
trials
long.
later.
Go on, with the trial quickly.
See if the audience know what trials is.
Okay, what's trials, everybody? Hashtag BBC F1. I once reported or did interviews and sort of host coverage of the European Microlighting Championship.
Wow.
Which was quite something. But yeah.
Goodness me. Did not realise that this conversation would take these twists and turns throughout the free practice too.
No.
Right, so just over 10 minutes to go then, and it's the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc leading the timesheets with Sergio Perez and Max Verstappen tucked in behind as they're currently on soft tyres for the last few minutes of this session now. I think we've had the performance runs done, and I think the big sort of question coming out of this really is, where has the big Red Bull advantage gone for me?
Yeah, and Verstappen's not going to get much running here, long run wise, is he? He's in the pits, 10 minutes to go, and he will get some. But it's quite a long lap here as well, a minute 43. So he's in the pits now, so 5 laps or something potentially. I don't know.
Yeah,
it won't be a huge amount of long running for Verstappen, but as Magnussen gets passed by Gasly coming down into the first corner, but Perez is out there already on the medium tyre, and interestingly Leclerc's on the soft tyre and Perez is on the medium tyre, so that's interesting.
Yeah, it is. Given that Red Bull at the moment only have one car available, I guess they've had to use Red Bull for most of this data collection until we can get Verstappen out there. Verstappen will, of course, make it out before the end of the session, and he'll get some meaningful running in, but they are relying somewhat on Perez to bring home the data that will help to formulate their strategy as the weekend goes on. Andrew,
cars or bikes trials?
Cars.
Cars, yeah, exactly.
After a fashion, anyway.
Okay, yeah, so that's the thing, because I'm aware of trials on, like, motorbikes where you do, like, trial bike, and you're doing all the jumps and the hops and all of that, but cars, I don't think I know. So just looking at the sectors broken down between the two Red Bull cars, it's the first sector where Perez has really been able to hook it up. That Red Bull, we thought, had a disadvantage to Ferrari in the first sector, but a massive advantage in the third sector. Perez, and only Perez out of the two at this stage, has managed to claw back a huge chunk of that in that first sector. So whether that comes down to driving style or different setups on the two cars, but that's the area that Max Verstappen has so far been struggling on during this session, is getting the maximum out of that first sector, as opposed to what they had and the advantage they had in the third sector. So Perez looking the more comfortable of the two Red Bull drivers. Lance Stroll has just gone straight on at turn 15 and then reversed back onto the track and got going again. Gordon says listening to this commentary is a trial. feels a bit brutal, but also very fair. And George Russell now coming down into the first corner, still has that record of the only driver to have finished in the top 5 in every race so far this season. The highest place finish was 3rd on 2 occasions in Spain and Australia, but solid consistency for Russell as he now comes down the second straight in towards turn 3. You've got to say he's done well, hasn't he, coming into the Mercedes team in his first real sustained spell, in the top tier of Formula One, I guess. He's done a solid job, and it has been dependable. It's been consistent. That's, like you said, consistency, particularly with a Mercedes that's had a really inconsistent car. To have the consistency of George Russell's results, and therefore the information that comes from that, must have been a real benefit to the team. I think they'll be pretty pleased with the way he started his Mercedes campaign. Better than you expected? I think I expected good things of him, but I think given that they've had so many troubles, we've seen a Mercedes that's been, I don't want to say easy to drive, but certainly been the class of the field over the last few years. So they've got a real challenge on their hands in trying to develop this car out of the problems that it's had. And I think from that perspective, he's done a really good job. That's not to take anything away from Lewis, of course, but I think with the inexperience that George Russell has, maybe actually the experience that he's had at Williams down the back end of the field where they've always been struggling with their car, perhaps that's what's helped him in this period of his Mercedes life. 6 minutes and 8 seconds on the clock. Russell weaving his way through the quick sequences of corners towards the line. And he will get another lap on the board. So Leclerc's on the soft tyres, Perez on the mediums. Verstappen has just left the pits, and I think he's on the soft tyres, Verstappen, by the looks of things, but he's only just gone out onto the circuit now with less than 6 minutes to go. Yeah, there he is, popping out of turn 1. So he will get not even 5 laps in, maybe 3 timed laps, something like that, as he gets out of the way of George Russell. Alonso's on the medium, Sainz is on the medium, so Ferrari have split their strategies, as have Perez, in these early stages, or for the early stages of the Grand Prix. Gasly's gone out on softs, Tsunoda on mediums, so feels like there's a bit of uncertainty within the team, certainly initially, into what they think is the best strategy.
Yeah, and also interesting, it's still, I think, only McLaren that have done some persistent running on the hard tyres, so perhaps they're looking at that as a more of an option as the weekend goes on. But as I said, tyre degradation generally low around this particular circuit. It tends to favour a one-stop strategy in a so-called normal race. So you'll only need 2 of the 3 tyres come Sunday if everything sort of goes to plan. So it's all the question is, which one do you start on, which one do you go to, and what's your performance drop-off going to be like with a car on heavy fuel loads? How's that going to affect the tyres as the race goes on? Full of fuel, of course, at the start of a race, but that will gradually deteriorate as the race goes on. The car becoming lighter, becoming less abusive to its tyres, the circuit gripping up as well. So all of these things get factored into the race strategy plans in the meetings and discussions that will be happening overnight tonight and long into the rest of the weekend before qualifying happens.
Luca says, doesn't the Pau street circuit go past the Chateau de Pau? And Maps suggests that it might do, so maybe Pau has one as well. Chateau de Pau is a nice name for a castle too. Less than 4 minutes to go. This is Leclerc's radio.
What's going on? There's a problem with the engine, no? I will come back to you.
I didn't hear what you said there, did you?
What's going on? There's a problem with the engine, isn't there? And right. The engineer saying, we'll get back to you.
Okay, well that's not the sort of sounds you want to hear coming out of your lead driver, coming towards the end of FP2.
Do you think the Q2 qualifying rule thing has made much difference this year? Because I do feel like everybody just starts on the same tyre.
I think that was always going to be the case. I mean, the one thing it does is at certain circuits gives the opportunity for a different strategy in the top 10. I think most people will tend to favour the same one at most places, but there's going to be some circuits where it's a real fine line as to where the options are. And if you're 7th or 8th, perhaps you've got an opportunity to just do something different. So I'm not sure it's been a negative in any way. I haven't seen too many major positives, but I'm not sure it's a bad thing.
Let me know quickly. I don't want to take risks. So
we think everything is fine and you can push.
Okay, so the loss of power was normal.
And mode race, please. Mode race.
Sounded like a slightly ironic response from Charles Leclerc. So the loss of power was normal, was it?
Yeah.
So context. Leclerc's on the edge on engines, remember, after his failure in Spain,
yeah,
and he had
true.
a second engine fitted at the race before that in Miami, and I think he's got a cobbled together engine here, so it's like a ICE with a new MGU-H and turbo, or a MGU-H and turbo that had been swapped around because it was the MGU-H that failed. Is that right? In
but wasn't Binotto fairly relaxed about all of this?
He told me he was when I interviewed him in Monaco, which was what led to that interview that was published on the BBC Sport website the other day. But it was only in the context of, last year Mercedes won the Constructors' Championship with 6 engines, or other people will probably have engine problems too. That was the context for him feeling more relaxed about it. So Leclerc's going to get a penalty. He just obviously doesn't want one this weekend, and I think that's what's in his head right now, because I think if he needs a whole new engine, that's a penalty this weekend.
It's interesting. I sort of took from that radio message from Charles Leclerc as well a hint of perhaps a lack of confidence, in his own team, almost questioning, listen, this is what I want, don't want you to take any chances here. And if you think back, not just from a reliability perspective, but last time out in Monaco, and previously, he's been on the end of some slightly dubious calls from his team. I wonder if over time, in fact I know over time, that starts to impact your confidence in the people on the other end of the radio, where you start to feel like you have to lead strategy decisions, and that's probably not the best place for a team to be. So he needs some good feedback from his team.
Yeah, it's my bad then, but it's quite aggressive. So, yeah, that was the thing. But yeah, it's quite aggressive, I thought something was wrong.
Understood.
I didn't really catch that, to be honest with you.
I didn't get that either, sorry. No, not sure.
40 seconds on the clock. Albon is the only driver in the pit lane after clouting the barrier at turn 17 earlier on. Everybody else is getting their laps in. Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri coming through the right-hander, very tight as ever in the midfield. Really from Russell really in 7th back to Vettel in 11th. There's just 0.2 of a second. In fact, it's only 0.3 back to Stroll in 13th. So as ever, the midfield is very tight as Tsunoda now comes up into turn 15. We're just going to have a look at Tsunoda into the left-hander of turn 2, and right up to the wall on the exit of turn 2. I don't think he quite tapped it, but he was very close as we approach the end of the session.
Yeah, well,
and that's a bit more of Leclerc for you. Still not sure what he's saying.
Still ranting on the radio. But you know what, Jack? I mean, we normally do this a little bit earlier, but as the checkered flag comes out to bring the end of this session to a close, as Carlos Sainz takes up the exit road after a lock-up, I think, into turn 15, shall we head over for a bit of Long Run Corner?
Long Run Corner with Andrew Benson.
Well, there's not a lot of data to go on, I'm afraid, because of Verstappen's sort of slightly offset session. He only got 2 laps in at the end on the soft tyre, but conveniently for us, he and Leclerc were both running the soft tyre, and Verstappen, judging from the 2 laps that he did, is slightly quicker than Leclerc on race pace. His fastest lap was a 47.0, whereas Leclerc's was a 47.2. And on average, okay, Verstappen's only done 2 laps compared to Leclerc's 5, but Verstappen's average is 47.4, minute 47.4 seconds. Leclerc's 1 minute 47.8, so about 0.4 off, somewhere between 2 and 0.4. Definitely a Red Bull advantage there on the soft tyre. On the medium tyres between Perez and Sainz, it's a lot closer, both averaging almost exactly the same lap time at a 48.0, to be precise, 48.07 for Perez, 48.08 for Sainz.
So, because if Ferrari have the pace to keep ahead of, enough pace to keep 1.1 seconds ahead of Red Bull, it doesn't matter about the straight line speed.
Good point, but that's the big if, isn't it? And what we found in Saudi and in Miami was that as the stints went on, they couldn't keep that pace up.
Yeah, well, that's very true.
Yeah.
Tyres and stuff. What is trials?
So trials is these things, they're like sort of hand-built cars, which people, and they basically drive them up steep hills in the mud. And they have like these things called fiddle brakes, which they use to brake different wheels, the back wheels.
As per McLaren in '99.
Exactly, that's where they got that idea from.
Really?
And
we used to call it fiddle brake.
Yeah, exactly. And the steering wheel has a kind of knob on it that you use to spin it round quickly if you want
like a trucker.
Kind of idea, yeah. And they sort of, it's just madness, really. People
you didn't like it?
I mean, it's eccentric fun, put it that way. But
no, that doesn't sound like you. So, bad WWE stats. Also, he was they asked, are Baku and Montjuic the only 2 F1 tracks with castles? They've just quite tweeted their own reply saying, a simple no would have been fine. We didn't need to know all the other ones. Right, so this is the order at the end of the session. Charles Leclerc quickest. Checker flag is out. Cars now doing their practice starts. Leclerc fastest. Perez second. Verstappen third. Alonso fourth. Sainz fifth. Gasly, Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon and Norris the top 10. Vettel, Hamilton, Stroll, Ricciardo and Bottas the top 15. Joe, Magnussen, Albon, Schumacher and Latifi the 20 drivers. So I think we're just in a situation where it looks close. Looking forward to tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I guess this is the best outcome for us, isn't it? We still don't know yet who's going to have the best car around this circuit. It is very close. The performance has swung between those first 2 practice sessions from very clearly Red Bull to now being slightly sort of muddy waters, but with Charles Leclerc out front, 2.5 tenths out front, they're looking a lot stronger, aren't they?
Yeah, didn't get to see a lap time from Carlos Sainz because for whatever reason he had to bail out in the final sector. Verstappen didn't get a proper run in on his tyres because he was came across a yellow flag for Sergio Perez. So basically, come back tomorrow. Benson, briefly, your overall thoughts?
Well, there's definitely been a switch between Session 1 and Session 2, hasn't there? I'm not sure at this stage which one of Ferrari and Red Bull have done what, but the Ferrari deficit on the straights in the final sector has gone away, and they've maintained their pace in the corners, and the advantage has switched from them to Red Bull, it would appear, over one lap. I still fancy Red Bull for the win in terms of just the impression of the session and what you would expect of the weekend anyway, but yeah, close.
Absolutely. This has been an IMG content production. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Make sure you join us at noon tomorrow for the third free practice session.